This week I've talked to a couple of friends about certain aspects of relationships and connections, and friendships and intimate relationships as well. And we've talked about toxic masculinity and toxic femininity in connections and in relationships, and our experiences, their experiences and my own experiences of both those aspects of relationships, which can eventuate with incompatibility, toxic masculinity and toxic femininity. And I'm going to relate my experiences without naming any names, and of course my own experiences. A lot of my own experiences come from my own personal experience of creating toxic masculinity or creating toxic femininity when the polarities had to be reversed in regards to my relationship. Because I have dated a few women who are very, very masculine in their approach to our relationship, and therefore I had to be very feminine in our connection in order to create the polarity. And I understood this. I had to be very receptive and be very feminine in my approach to that connection, because if we'd both been very assertive in our masculine approach, in a masculine assertive way in regards to how we approached each other in our connection, we would have been friends. There would be no sexual polarity, So I had to be that guy. I had to become more feminine in the relationship with particular partners I had in the past. Otherwise, we would have had no sexual connection. And that worked to an extent until that masculinity towards me in my relationship became toxic, because they couldn't identify with the fact that they weren't aware enough to know that I was assuming a very feminine role in our relationship in regards to how we were connecting. Because if I didn't do this, we'd be friends. And in the end, I got to the point where I got so tired of being in my connection. This is one of the elements of toxic masculinity. I got so tired of being gaslit. I got so tired of being told that I wasn't doing anything with my not my life, but I wasn't offering anything to my connection with some woman in my relationships I had. When I was in a very feminine role, when I was in that connection with that woman, but outside the connection, I was actually acting in a very masculine way and in a very assertive way in regards to my life experience. But when I was in the relationship with this particular woman at the time, or woman plural at the time, and I had to assume the role of in a more feminine aspect because they were so intensely masculine towards me, and I knew that for us to keep our connection alive in a sexual way, I had to assume that role. And funnily enough, and in a lot of those connections I had with women where I was assuming a feminine role in a more receptive sense, when we came to intimate sexual connection, the roles were reversed and flipped, and I became more masculine in that way, and they became more feminine in that way, in regards to the sense that they became more trusting, they surrendered to me, and they allowed me to dictate not necessarily how the sexual connection was going to play itself out, but they trusted me in that way, in their feminine wiles. They trusted me, and they opened themselves up to me to receive, and in that way I was able to bring them to a place of assertiveness in our connection sexually, so they were getting what they want from me, and I was getting what I want from them. So we have that beautiful, powerful, passionate connection in our sexual connection. So for me, one of the biggest things about toxic masculinity in my experience, one of the biggest aspects in our today, culture, our hookup culture, is the nature of women not feeling safe around men who are predatory in a sexual sense, and they're after one thing and one thing only. That's hookup culture, that's sex. So they will go out of their way to get what they want in a very assertive masculine way. And they'll often lie, they'll often project, they'll often do anything they possibly can to get the end result for them, which is a hookup, a sexual connection. So they'll go about that way in a very assertive way, and often in that toxic masculinity, they'll cross boundaries of women who are not interested, or if they are interested, want to move more slower in regards to the connection. But the men in that connection will push over the boundaries and not make this woman feel safe around them, because they're just pushing too far, too fast, and then women are like going, you know what, this is too much, I'm not interested, I'm backing off, no thank you, I'm creating a boundary here, and they'll push into that boundary hard in order to get what they want. And you know, I have been there before myself in my own personal experience many, many years ago, but I've seen it a lot in people. And you know, the last couple of years I've been hanging out with very conscious, aware people. And funnily enough, I went to 3 or 4 festivals over the summer of 2022, 2023, and the very beginning of this year, I should say. And at those festivals, I saw a lot of toxic masculinity in my perception, where men were pushing into places, pushing in over boundaries, and making women feel unsafe because they were being very predatory in their nature, in their way that they wanted to connect with women. And there was no men that were holding the space to allow women to be themselves and feel safe around them, knowing that that particular man they were interacting with wasn't going to push into that place, wasn't being predatory, and wasn't crossing any boundaries. So what I did at those festivals I went to, I held my space. I wasn't there to have hookup and get action. That was not my intention. I definitely had a very strong attraction to one particular individual I met at one of the festivals I was at, and I interacted with her in a very intimate way. I was crazy about her. She was awesome, and she still is awesome. It didn't work out for us. We weren't compatible. She's awesome though, I have to admit. But my heart said go for it. So I did. And I let go. And I was open, authentic, real, and honest. Right from the start. And in my honouring of the divine masculine, and what I perceived to be the divine masculine, I was authentic, open, real, honest, and told her exactly what I was available for, what I wanted to experience with her, and I was affectionate, I was loving, I was tender and intimate with her whenever I could be, and our connection was very short, but it was beautiful. I really enjoyed the experience, and I learned a lot in that connection about myself too. I learned a lot about myself and where I'm at in regards to the relationship in that connection. So also in regards to toxic masculinity, what I have seen as well and what I've experienced with toxic masculinity is this need to be right. A need to be right, and a need to usurp another woman or a man, usurp their will and cross a boundary where you are taking control of a situation, while the situation is being controlled by someone who's acting in this way, a toxic masculine way, asserting their will over somebody else in order to actually have a situation to their own personal outcome, and without listening, without listening to what the other woman or man is saying to them and hearing them, which is also not listening and not hearing. In my perception, are two aspects of toxic femininity. When you have a more receptive container, that being a more feminine container, more receptive, more open. And when I feel as though when you're not heard or seen, when someone is expressing themselves authentically with authentic openness and vulnerability and being real, and you're not, and that woman or man who you're in connection with, friendship or relationship, and they are not hearing you or seeing you when you're being open and honest and vulnerable, because they're in their own little worlds, or they just don't want to hear, or they're so self-involved that they just can't hear you because they're in their own little worlds. There's a compatibility issue right there, right? Obviously, if you're being authentic, real, and honest with someone, and that woman or man on the receiving end of your authentic, real, honest, and vulnerable behaviour cannot see you or hear you, there's a lack of compatibility there, obviously, because it's not going to work out. But in my perception, when someone's not hearing you or seeing you when you're acting that way, in that receptive container that you're asking them to be, that's toxic femininity in my perception. It's toxic, and it's dangerous, because if you're not heard or seen or in your expression in that way, that can really affect your self-esteem big time. It can really make you feel like, it can really be debilitating to your self-esteem. in my experience. And I've been on the receiving end of that, and I've also done it to my partners and my lovers too in the past, when I didn't want to hear or see what they were telling me, because my fear kept me from being in a place of being receptive, because I didn't want to hear what they were telling me, because it meant our connection on some level was being altered. So those are a few aspects of toxic femininity and toxic masculinity that I've seen, and I really feel as though what my friends were telling me about their experiences in regards to their toxic masculinity and toxic femininity is really interesting too, because in the conscious movement experience that I've had over the last few years in this country, especially in this country, I moved out of the party scene that I was in for almost 10-15 years and more back into the conscious awareness movement, and the people I interacted with, I began to see a lot of let's just say interesting behavior around this notion of the goddess behavior, in the way that it was toxic in the feminine, but it was also toxic in the masculine, due to the nature of the fact that a lot of women within this movement that I met projected out into the world that they were valuable, very valuable is not the right word, were very deserving of everything they wanted to create in their lives in regards to this, finding their kings and their princes, and because they believed themselves to be queens or goddesses or gods, to meet them on that level, on that divine level, meet them in that way. But they were not able to to find that attraction, find that connection in that way, due to the nature of the fact that they believe that they wanted to have this experience and attract into their lives their gods, them being goddesses, and then bringing their gods into their lives, their god men into their lives, but without doing the real work that comes with actually coming to a place where that divinity is not something you proclaim to the world, you just embody it. There's a difference. And it's also, in my perception, an aspect of toxic femininity and masculinity in the same container. You're projecting out into the world, you want to have this experience of bringing someone into your life that's going to embody all the attributes that you want from a partner, yet you're not wanting to do the work yourself, the feminine aspect of that. You're not wanting to do the work yourself to get to a place where you embody those very traits that you want in somebody else. And trust me, I know, I've been there on that side of the fence and that side of the fence, and I know I've taken years of my life, literally, I'm 51 now, taken years of my life to get to a place where I'm only starting to embody that which I want to see in a partner. And I'm taking it out into the world, you know? And I'm honest enough to realize that I'm not fucking perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm doing my best to be a better man in this body, right? And to act in a way that embodies the virtues and embodies the attributes that I want to see in a partner, right? And a lover and a partner. And I'm doing my best, you know, and that part of that experience is knowing my limits and not going to a place where I'm projecting out into the world what I want to experience, and knowing that I haven't done the work to embody that which I want to experience with somebody else. So therefore, how could I ever attract it into my life? It's just not going to work. You know, you have to do the work. And that's the most important aspect of this. You know, when you meet someone and you choose to do the work together, hey, that's amazing. That's amazing. That's a beautiful connection if you've chosen together to do the work together and move forward together to embody those attributes that you want to both create in regards to a partner, if you're both compatible enough to have that experience. And in my experience in the last few years, I've also, get back to that. The last few years, I've done my best to come to a place where I've taken 3 months to get to know someone before I'm sexually intimate with them. I've had a few experiences where I've crossed the line with some beautiful woman because my heart said, yes, go for it. And in my experience of having that, crossing that line, there was a lack of compatibility with my connection with these two, with a few women that I connected with very quickly. Obviously, we wanted different things. We were in different places in our lives, and we were not compatible. And we rediscovered that about each other, and we moved on. And I really feel as though there's a real the idea of bringing back courting in the 21st century is something special, where we take the time to get to know someone we are attracted to, and we court them. We get to know them. Sex comes after 3 months of getting to know someone, spending time with them. We can do everything else if we want to, if that's what we want to do. We can get a little bit fresh and a little bit frisky, but crossing the line where the sexual connection takes place, we don't go there until 3 months. Because in that time frame, this is a Jocelyn Deere, women wisdom coach. I heard her say this, and it was brilliant. It was genius. I think it's amazing. The idea is, in that time of 3 months, you will see all the psychological red flags that come up in your connection with somebody to see if you're compatible to have that connection and move forward together and grow together and have a beautiful, strong, intimate connection together, and a friendship and a companionship and all the pieces that come together in that way. And you know what? She's right. I really feel that she's onto a winner there, and it's amazing. Bring back courting in the 21st century, I say. Court your beautiful woman, court your beautiful men, get to know each other, spend time with each other, and then see if it's going to work and you're compatible. And hopefully, if you're not compatible, you can create a strong friendship with each other. And that's cool, because you can support each other through your next connections, and your friendship becomes, hopefully, a strong friendship with someone who you're not compatible with, but maybe you're compatible in other ways that create a strong friendship, So that can be a beautiful thing in my perspective. And that's not toxic masculine or toxic feminine. That's strong masculine and a strong feminine aspect combined together in my perception, moving forward to create a potential beautiful connection that could potentially become intimate. Whew, take a breath, far. Thanks for watching. I truly appreciate it. Mā te wa. I'll see you again soon.